we try to keep these a little bit casual. I saw Logan yesterday, and he told me he likes to keep it casual. Probably felt obligated to wear a dress shirt just because I did, but
yeah, this is dressing up for me.
So we instead of like an official introduction, giving you like a biography or anything, I just figured we'd start off with that as the first question. Logan, if you can just tell us a little bit about you, your background, your family if you want to, what was life like growing up for you, goals and aspirations you had, and then we'll kind of get into how you got into your career and all that too, but just kind of some background information on you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Jeremy. Me and Jeremy like these interviews about the same, being up in front of people, but no, I'm Logan Staheli. I was born and raised here in Cedar City. I've lived here my whole life, minus 2 years that I served as a missionary in Germany. I grew up on Brent Hunter's hay farm. Does anyone know Brent Hunter in here? Yeah. Yep. We know a few, yeah. James does. I lived out there, and Spencer obviously knows him. And so I grew up on a pretty large hay farm, I guess you could say. My dad was Brent Hunter's farm manager all growing up, so we got to live on the farm and work on the farm. And it was a fun life growing up with all that land around us. My wife and my kids are back here. My wife grew up in Salem, Utah, and so she grew up kind of in a neighborhood, and I grew up on a farm, and so it's been a little different there. But she likes it here in Cedar now too. But growing up, I just worked on the farm and did a lot of sports and different things like that. After my mission, I came home and I went to SUU. I went through the business school at SUU. I graduated right before they built that new nice building. So I got my undergrad from SUU in business management, and then I ended up doing my MBA from SUU as well, just right after. Just got it all done, and I loved SUU, loved the experience I had there. And I worked at Staheli West all throughout going to school and everything, so it was fun to be a part of a growing business while I was studying it and have those opportunities while I was studying business in school. So,
what year did you graduate?
I think I graduated in like 2017, I think.
Okay.
With my MBA, so 2018 maybe.
Just missed you there.
Yeah.
I graduated 2019 with
Okay.
my undergrad, and then
Cool.
2021 with my MBA. So cool. So did you, growing up on a farm, then was it kind of always like a life goal to be a farmer or to be in the farming industry in some way or another, or was that just kind of because the family took on the business as you
Yeah,
got
that's
older?
great. Growing up, I had no idea that my family would own a manufacturing company and sell farm equipment. As far as I knew, my dad was gonna live out his whole life on the farm as a farm manager. I loved farming. It was a great opportunity. I still do miss farming a little bit. There were times growing up that I thought, being a farmer would be fun. So there are things I really miss about the farm. There's things I don't miss about the farm too. You know, a lot of stress that comes with farming. It's not always easy. I look at farmers sometimes when it rains and the hay gets rained on, and it's just, sometimes I'm glad I'm not a farmer, but sometimes I miss it still, just that lifestyle. Being out with your family and having your kids right on the tractor with you all the time, and being a farmer is a lifestyle, and it is a great life. And so there are things I miss about it, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure different challenges too that you face.
But I'm grateful to be at Staheli West because I get to farm a little bit still. I get to drive tractors. I get to be in the ag community. And so it's fun to be able to do that, but it's also fun. I love the business side of it a lot too.
Yeah, kind of cool. You get to dabble in both.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, with that, I think probably most of the people in this room are at least somewhat familiar with Staheli West, but I think a lot of people probably don't know that much about you. So can you tell us a little bit more about Staheli West and what you're all about at Staheli West?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Who hasn't heard of the Staheli West story in here? Oh, a lot of you. That's really cool. So maybe I'll just briefly go over that. One of the coolest things, and one of my primary roles among other things too is to oversee the marketing. I know there's a lot of marketing people in here, but one of the things I love about Staheli West is we have such a cool and unique story. It's a super fun story to tell. It's a super fun story to share, and we love to share that story whenever we get the chance. So my dad, back in the early 90s, was managing Brent Hunter's farm. He was in charge of baling the hay, and for a lot of you that know about baling hay, it's really important to how you bale the hay. How you bale the hay directly affects the quality of the hay bale and the amount of money that you can make selling the hay. And so in many parts of the world, it's really dry like cedar. And so it's great for growing alfalfa. Utah grows great alfalfa. But getting the right amount of moisture when you go to bale that hay, that's where it gets tricky, because you have to let the hay, once you cut it, you've seen the hay rows, it has to completely dry out before you can go and pack it into the hay bales. So once it's completely dried out, it's hard though, because before my dad invented the steamer, is you'd have to go out in the middle of the night and try to time the moisture just right so that the natural dew could come on the hay and provide just enough moisture to keep the leaves on the hay and make it soft and make it pack good. You had to have just the right amount of moisture to do that without making it too wet. And so it was always really hard to go out and time it. My dad struggled with this for years. It's really funny because my dad tells a story about his grandpa, and that natural dew was big even 50 years ago or 60 years ago. He tells a story about my grandpa Staheli. My great-grandpa was a cowboy. He was out on the range, and they had some hay. And my grandpa and his brothers thought it would be cool while their dad was out on the range running cows. The hay had been cut, and they thought, let's do Dad a big favor, and let's go pitchfork all this hay and get it on a wagon, and we'll haul it back to the yards. Have you heard this story? You've heard this story, Spencer? And so they went out in the day, and they started pitchforking all this hay onto the wagon, and they took it back to the yards, and they stacked the hay nice, just in piles. They didn't have a hay baler. But when my great-grandpa Staheli got back from the range, he chewed them out big time, because they pitchforked the hay in the middle of the day, and all the leaves were left in the field. They thought they were doing him a great favor, but they lost all the quality of the hay. So even back then, you had to have had natural dew to even pitchfork the hay. So imagine the hay balers nowadays that really pick up that hay and thrash it a little bit. And so my dad just struggled with this problem. And he's a religious guy, and so he was praying for help and guidance. And he had this memory come into his mind of seeing the workers at a taco restaurant steaming tortilla shells. And they would put these cold, hard tortilla shells in a steamer oven. They'd blast them with steam. They'd pull them out, and they were super soft. And that's the idea that came into his mind when he was praying. And so that next morning, he went and got a box of dry hay out of the field, brought it into my mom's kitchen, and made some steam on the oven just with a pressure cooker, attached a hose to it, and he put a little valve on there, opened the valve. We still have this pressure cooker at Staheli West to show people when they come on tours. And he put that hose down in the box of dry hay, and he steamed the hay, and he picked up the hay, and it was super soft, just like the tortillas.
So I'm sure your mom forgave him then.
Yes. And one of the most amazing things about this story is we did a whole documentary on this, by the way. If you guys want to watch it, there's four videos. Spencer's in there on some of the videos. He was a key part in the beginning as well, one of our first employees. And one of the coolest things is when my dad went to the farm manager, Brent Hunter, about this idea, Brent had no reservations about it whatsoever. My dad said, I've come up with this idea. What do you think if we tried to make something? And Brent Hunter was on board without a single question. He says, let's do it. That's a great idea. So I think it's super cool from Brent Hunter's perspective that he was just like, saw the value of it immediately and was totally on board with using the farm's money to develop this idea.
Awesome. I think that's something we could all learn from too, regardless of what industry we're in, but just being able to, whether it's an employee that we have, a coworker, but showing that support to pursue other ideas and innovation. And
just amazing that he wasn't like, well, he wasn't skeptical at all. He was just immediately bought into the idea and was full blown behind the idea from the very beginning. So he's a huge part of our company as well.
Yeah, because I'm sure.
And he's still farming. Yeah. Brent's still farming. Brandon Hunter's taken over the farm now, his son, and we do a lot of our test work out on that farm still.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure it would have been at least a lot more difficult to get Staheli West started without support.
Yes, it probably, my dad will say it himself. I think he mentions it in the documentary. We probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Brent Hunter today. So very big shout out to him for being open to new ideas.
Yeah, that's all. It seems like every successful business, when they're started, they have a large help from a mentor or somebody that can come in and provide that type of support. So, awesome. Did you ever? I'll ask how old you were when Staheli West kind of got started, and then did you, from the time it was started, was that your plan was to work with Staheli West your whole career, or like going to school? Did you ever consider pursuing other business ideas or other career paths other than just running the family business?
No, that's a great question. I was very little when the idea was conceived, but I was around the steamer all the time. I rode tractors with my dad all the time growing up. I ran some of the early models of the steamer when I was a young teenager all the time. We had engineers coming to our farm all the time from other ag companies that were interested in the idea. And so I remember that. I grew up around that my whole life. And I don't know baling hay without the steamer. Honestly, I really don't. Spencer does, others do, but I've always baled hay with our technology. And so I hear stories though, so I know what it's like all the time. Do a lot of customer stories. As far as me working at Staheli West, initially my dad invented this machine for the farm. He knew that it was going to be a revolutionary thing. He always knew that it was going to change the world of haymaking at least.
Yeah, if it makes it where you don't have to do it.
But initially he just wanted something for his own life to make it easier to bale high quality hay and not have to be so stressed all the time and going to check the dew every night, 5 times a night. He just wanted something that would work for Brent Hunter Farms. So the business really got started in about 2006 and 7 is when my dad took some of the early designs and said, I'm going to bring it up to code. I'm going to bring it up to some of the modern technology to make it easier and more simple to run. And so he redesigned his early prototype machines, and he made it really user-friendly. He made it work really good, and that's when he decided to really take it to the market. There was another big company, one of the biggest ag companies in the world wanted to produce the steamer for about 8 years. And so my dad worked with them for 8 years, but it didn't work out. And so that's when in 2006 he got his patent back and just said, I'm going to start my own company and do this myself the way that I wanted to in the beginning. And so I was in high school when that happened. He sold his first 5 machines in like 2009, 2010. And so it really it took off right before I left to Germany for 2 years as a missionary. And at that time, I think right before I left, he had purchased the first facility, because before that we were building these machines just on the farm in a hay barn. And so he purchased his first facility right before I left. And when I came back in 2 years, he was still at that little facility on Industrial Road. And so I didn't really help build a lot of those first machines, but when I came back, I think we were probably selling 20 machines a year maybe. And so it kind of taken off a little bit. And when I came back from my mission, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. It wasn't something that I was like, for sure I'm going to do this. I'm going to work at Staheli West. Before my mission, I didn't know that's what I was going to do. But as I came back and as I got right to work to put myself through school, I learned that I did have a passion for business, and that Staheli West was a great opportunity for me. And as I studied business and as I worked at Staheli West, I grew a love for business. And what better opportunity do I have to, than to work for a company that, I can be a part of the decision-making group. I can make an impact, and it's a cool company, and it's a legacy too.
Yeah.
That we can carry on, and it's a product that really benefits people's lives, and that's a company that's fun to work for. Something that is going to help people and really be a benefit and pay for itself, and so that always helps to believe in what you're selling.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of my favorite parts about Staheli. It's just so cool to see a company that's born and raised right here in Cedar City, started, the idea from a taco shop, then turned into coming up with this invention that is now a multi-million dollars a year revenue company.
Yeah. And it's a great, whether you're a family member or not a family member, it's a great company. We really try to give people freedom to innovate and make choices and make decisions and improve. And that's a fun thing about working at Staheli West, is you've got a lot of freedom to try new things and to grow and develop and implement new ideas and stuff. So it's been fun.
Cool. So you mentioned like 2009, 2010, is when it really started to take off.
Yeah.
And then obviously here we are today, 13 years later or so. And obviously you're very successful today. So was it just like straight success the whole way, or did you have a lot of bumps and challenges along the way that were tough to overcome? Do you want to speak to any of those?
Yeah, there's, as a lot of you guys know, all of you know, there's challenges that come all the time. From the beginning, it grew really organically. My dad threw together a pretty cheap website, threw some YouTube videos on YouTube, threw some ads in a magazine, and it just slowly started to grow, word of mouth and things like that. So in the beginning, it grew organically pretty quickly. Up until about 2016, it continued to grow. And then we had a few down years. A few years later, for whatever reason, we kind of feel like it was a few reasons, and I'll explain that. We got growing bigger, and we needed more support, and so we made the decision to go to dealerships. Before that, we were selling direct. We were talking directly to the customers. We were helping the customers put the machines in the field. We were very close with all of the customers. We knew all the customers. And so, but it started to grow too big that we couldn't take care of everybody ourselves. Because you get so many machines out on farms, a part is bound to go out, or something's bound to get broken, and it became too much for us to handle. And so we started seeking out dealership opportunities, and dealerships came to us. And so we changed our business model from selling direct to selling through dealerships.
And
it went
completely switched
good.
to
Yeah.
no more direct and all dealerships?
Currently we don't sell direct to anybody. We sell through dealerships even to this day. But there was a learning curve. There were hiccups along the way. We learned very quickly after the first couple years that the dealerships that were selling our product along with their other main products, they didn't have the passion and love for the steamer that we did, right? They didn't have the knowledge that we did. You know, it was still pretty fresh to them. They weren't, you know, they sold tractors and balers, and the steamer was just another product that they sold. And so our sales actually dipped for 2 or 3 years in 2017 and 18. We had some pretty down years. So we went up really fast and then we dipped. And we got together. We pulled a lot of the decision makers in the company together, and we said, what do we got to do here? We got to make a change here. We had come out with a new product in 2015, a newer version of the steamer, which was great. And we decided that we were losing touch with the customers. We decided that a reason we may be losing some sales is because the dealerships aren't as passionate about the steamer as we are. And if we're going to put all of our eggs in the dealership basket to make all of our sales for us, we might be in trouble, right? Because they just assume sell a tractor as they would a baler. They don't care what they're selling as long as they're making the money. And so we decided that we need to make some changes with our structure. And so we decided that we were going to be more active and proactive in selling the steamers. And so we hired territory managers around the country to be over a geographical area and to sell the steamer in those areas. But one of the most important things these territory managers were supposed to do was to be at the farms when they got the new machines. So one of the goals was that every new machine that we sold, they would be there with the customer when they started up the machine for the first time. And they would train them on how to use the steamer and make sure they had a great experience and they knew how to use the product and they used it right. And so that's one of the things we did in 2018, 2019 is we said, okay, we're going to put local guys around the country that know the steamer well and that can train every single operator on the steamer. The other thing we did was we kind of felt like when we went to dealerships and we kind of stepped back a little bit, we felt like the steamer was a great product, but we felt like people weren't using it the right way or as good as they could. And so we felt like if someone's not using the steamer right, the other farmers in that area, they're going to say, hey, that guy's hay is not that great, even though he's using a steamer. And we know that the steamer can make great hay if you use it right. And so we said, you know what, I think some of the decline in sales is because people aren't using the steamer right in certain areas. And people are seeing the hay and they're saying, that's not that great a hay. Yeah. And they have a steamer, I don't need to buy a steamer. And so that was a big reason we went to territory managers. We wanted every customer to be satisfied and use the product because we have learned that if you use it right, you're going to love it and you're never going to go back. And so the other thing we did is we hired a customer success manager. Mm-hmm. And so we hired, initially it was my sister that took on the role. And since then we have another person fulfilling that role. But they call all the new customers 3 times a year. And they go through surveys and make sure that if they have any questions, we get them answered. Or if there's any concerns or if they have any problems, that we get all those problems and concerns resolved. And so we take all new customers through 3 different surveys throughout the year. And then every single customer that has ever bought a steamer or is running a steamer, we do at least 1 survey a year with them where we talk to them on the phone. We go through all the questions, and if there's ever any problems, then we take those problems back to their local territory manager, Staheli West territory manager, and they get resolved and fixed. And from about 2019 up until now, we've seen a steady increase in sales again. So this last year was our biggest year we've ever had. So it's really helped to do that. We've seen an increase in sales, and we've also come out with a new product as well, a smaller version of our steamer for the small bale market, and that's also increased sales a lot. Coming out with a new product. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely been challenges along the way that we've had to work through. That's just one example. There's ever-present challenges that we're trying to solve. Just with even manufacturing in general, just trying to get more efficient at our processes and things like that. But
yeah, well, I love how you kind of found a way, because I think for most business owners, it's hard to kind of let go of some things where you had to kind of let go of that direct contact with the customers.
Yes.
But then that also created a little bit of a problem for you, and you found a way to, even though you're still not selling directly to customers, you now have that contact again directly with customers with those surveys, and kind of found a way to still make it work to have that direct contact, build those relationships, and that it's now paying off to to fix it that way. So that's kind of a cool way. You kind of already answered that. My next question that I was going to ask is that most businesses, to be successful, you feel a need or a pressure to continually innovate and pivot and find the right area to go. And so it sounds like you've done that in multiple different ways there at Staheli West.
Innovate, yep. Nope, I think in our industry it's extremely critical to constantly be improving the machine as well. If you're not improving your machine, then it's going to become obsolete at some point. You know what I mean? So
technology is always evolving, and so with that, do you plan to continue to work on the same products you have to innovate them, or do you plan to continue to create new products?
Yeah.
Or what's kind of the vision there that you have with Staheli West?
So our steamers that we sell today, they are, although my dad started the company and it was his brainchild, our product development team and our engineering team that we have now, the steamers that we've been able to produce now, we have another new model of the big steamer. So we sell 2 different models of steamers now. And they are, although the concept is the same and the results are the same with the steam and the hay bale and everything, the machine itself is quite advanced to what we started with, especially in the 90s, obviously. But even when my dad redesigned the machine in the 2006-07, our machine is leaps and bounds above what it was even then. So we've been able to really bring a lot of new technology into our machines, and they're quite a bit different than what we originally started with when we started Staheli West.
And are they made right here in Cedar?
Yep, most everything is made right here in Cedar. All of the welding, the powder coating, we get the steel from, most of the machine is right here in southern Utah. It's made, but we obviously buy parts from all over the world, all over the country, bring it in and put it all together.
Yeah, cool. That's amazing. So with the growth, obviously growth for a company is great, but also it comes with a lot of challenges. And you've spoken to some of those challenges. Are there any other challenges that you can think of that are specifically related to the growth, whether that's growth within the company, hiring more employees, or the other challenges that you face as you grow, acquiring more customers? You mentioned that was one of them, is that you gain too many customers to keep that direct selling. But any other growth challenges that you can think of?
Well, an area for growth for us is as we get more machines out there, we've had to develop other parts of our business to be able to support those machines. So we have, one thing we've done is we have Staheli West, and Staheli West produces all the machines, it builds the machines, the engineering is done there, but we have another entity, the Staheli West Parts and Service, and that is a big growing business for us. So we've had to, as we get more machines out there, especially through COVID and things, you got all the supply challenges of keeping parts on your shelves, especially for the customers that have the machines, and something breaks down, can't leave them hanging in the ag world. You've got to have the parts there when you need it. And so there have been challenges with meeting that demand. You know, we have close to 800 machines out there now, and so we've had to grow Staheli West Parts. It takes care of all of the machines that are out in the field. So we have our own separate inventory. We have our own separate systems. We have to make sure we keep every part that has ever gone on a steamer so that the customers have it. That's been a challenge. And then like the service side of it, just keeping everything documented. We've got to be able to service these machines for 30 years. And so to keep every single wire where it was documented, every single bolt, every single sensor, we have to have that all documented. We have to have manuals to fix the machines and to go back and fix old machines. And so there's been some challenges. There's manufacturing a product like this. There's a lot of moving parts to build the machine, design the machine, the technology behind it, but then also to service that machine after the fact. That's where you get the customer loyalty, is what you do after the sell. Ag equipment is great. All trucks and cars are great nowadays. They're all nice. All tractors are nice. But what will make someone buy a red tractor versus a green tractor is this company's going to service me better than this company. And we've seen that a lot. And so what happens after the sale is so critical for customer loyalty. And so that has been a challenge, but I feel like we've met that challenge pretty well.
Yeah, that's amazing to kind of evolve as you go with the customers too.
We have a great team. A lot of our customers think we are a lot bigger than we are, just because of all of the resources that we have. We just have a really good team of people that are passionate about the steamer too. And, you know, we have the latest and greatest when it comes to online parts diagrams and our manuals. People love the service manuals for the machines. And so when they find out, you know, that we are just a small company in Cedar City, Utah, with less than 40 employees, sometimes they get surprised because they're like, wow, your guys' resources are so good. Like, it's better than John Deere's. It's better than AGCO's parts book. It's better than a lot of these bigger companies. It's easier to use, and so that's a compliment to us. We love to hear those comments.
Yeah, that's a huge one. So when it comes to the service, you have a whole separate like service entity now. Do you have locations like all over the U.S. or are you shipping all of the machines back here to Cedar to fix those?
Yeah, so we have a service department, but once again, we sell through dealerships. The dealerships sell our equipment and they service our equipment.
Okay, so you can still.
And so that's another challenge, is we've got close to 100 dealerships now that are selling steamers. And they're constantly facing turnover, like many of you guys have seen in your businesses or where you work. So we have to constantly keep training these people. And as we add more products, that's our next challenge. We were just talking about it today, is how are we going to train people on these older products now that we're not making these anymore? We don't have these products to bring people in and train them. And so we are just looking at some software today where we're going to do online trainings on our older products, where our technicians have to become certified to service the older models of steamers through an online course, basically. And so our service department, we work with the dealers. So the dealers are spread locally, and they are able to be there on site with the customer if there's any problem. But our tech support guys they're on call 24/7. So you can call us any time of the day, and there will be someone that answers the phone. And we get a lot of calls throughout the hay season, especially all hours of the night. Our dealer technicians, if they can't solve the problem, which a lot of them can now because we've invested a lot in manuals troubleshooting manuals to, if this happens, do this. So we've done a lot of that, and that's helped a lot, but we still get calls from dealers for some of those deeper problems, and so we're basically just tech support. We're just phone calls from dealers. The dealers are the ones that are actually fixing the machines now.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Well, we still have a few more minutes for my questions, then I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A. So I just want to ask one final question. So most, if not all of our audience here, they're either entrepreneurs or very interested in entrepreneurship and involved with entrepreneurs. So do you have any key takeaways or advice that you would give to them, whether it comes to managing a business and running a business or starting a business? What do you think are some of the keys to the success that Staheli West has had that could be applied to?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. There's probably so many things. Just me watching my dad do this from the beginning. A lot of people ask, how did he get the money to start all of this? And what's really unique about our business is Brent Hunter funded the initial machine, which was amazing. But after that, we found customers that were willing to take a risk on us. Wow. We found customers that were willing to pay for a machine, half of the machine, before we had ever produced a machine and sold it. And so some of our early customers were our first investors, I guess you could say. They funded Staheli West by saying, I'm going to be that early adopter. I've never seen one really work that much, but I love the idea, and they paid us X amount of money. We were able to order all of the materials, and that's how we started without really any debt, much debt at all, very little debt. We were able to start Staheli West. We were able to leverage our early adopters to start Staheli West. But any other advice? I think what I've learned over the years is that there are so many resources available to help people that want to start businesses. If there's a business you want to start, there is someone out there that can help you do it. You've just got to find the right people to help you start that business. When my dad first started Staheli West, he didn't know how to program, do computer programming and stuff. He did learn how to do the mechanical design, which is amazing. We have mechanical design engineers now. He mechanically designed the first machine using a CAD program. He had to teach himself that. But he found someone that could do PLC programming and stuff. And he was able to contract with this person and help get that programming on. I think just finding the right resources. We thought going over to international markets was going to be scary. Spencer was involved in that, going to Australia. So many resources, right, Spencer? It was scary, but there were so many people there to help you. And we learned that it's not too bad. It's not that bad. You've got government agencies that are there to help you. You've got people that specialize in certain things that are there to help you. And I think that's what I've learned the most is if you have a need, there's someone out there that can help you with whatever you need help with. So
finding a mentor or connection somewhere that's willing to kind of walk you through the process of whatever challenge you're facing.
Absolutely.
Cool. And then, so just follow-up question with that. So you mentioned going to Australia. Are you still selling in Australia?
Yeah.
And do you plan to expand to other countries across the world?
Yeah, we're still selling to Australia. We're in South America, Mexico, and we are actually in the middle of working out a deal going to Africa. Wow. A big deal that we thought was pie in the sky, but it's possible that it's going to go through to Africa. So we'll see. It's looking pretty promising, which we're pretty surprised by. But
yeah, that's exciting.
And so new opportunities all the time creep up.
Yeah, that's another thing that's just so cool to see. Like again, born and raised right here in Cedar City, and now going across the whole world.
But if you have a product that solves a need, then you've got a good business idea, or a service that solves a need. That's why the steamer is successful, is because it solves a big pain point in baling hay.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a business idea that solves a major pain point or a need, or a service idea that solves a major need, then, and you're passionate about it, then you will have success.
Cool.
But we've grown pretty organically in the beginning. We didn't grow too fast. It was a healthy growth rate. Sometimes companies can grow way too fast too, right? And they can't keep their arms around everything, and things fall apart. So you've got to always be growing, but we've grown at a pace that we can kind of keep our arms around, and we want to make sure we can keep supporting those machines that are out there.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Well, we've got about 10 to 15 minutes left, and so I'm going to leave plenty of time to not just my questions, but hopefully some of those are questions that you were wondering too. But we want to open it up to ask any questions you want to Logan. So, and Merrick's got a mic. Again, we can all hear you fine in here, but the mic gets it so that it's clear on the video. So we've got a couple over here, Merrick.
So as a comment too, I hope it's okay if I share this amount, because it was an amount that meant a tremendous deal to me, because it was really the reason why Dave was able to hire me as one of the first employees of Staheli West. But our first customers, I actually pulled him up in my phone. It's Doug Whitney. Doug Whitney gave us a check for $85,000 and didn't get a machine for 11 months. He believed in us that much. He believed in Logan's dad, in Dave. And we delivered that machine. And then there were 5 others that we did the same thing with. And I just think that to be able to start a business like that, it's a testament to the industry that we work in. Logan would say this too. We work with some of the most amazing people in that industry. Farming and ag is just really cool. And I just wanted to make that as a comment, because it was their heart and soul that made it possible for us as a company to get started, and then to continue to thrive the way that Staheli West is thriving today because of the amazing farmers that are out there.
Yeah, I think that probably speaks to the how big the pain point is that you mentioned too.
Yeah.
If people are willing to put that kind of money and
yeah.
wait for it.
It's an amazing part of the story. I'm glad you mentioned that, because absolutely.
The amount of money to throw at a company that hadn't even produced.
Not a track record at all. Yep.
No track record.
Yep.
So here's my question. Maybe you already covered this, but to me, it's just the leap from going from the oven, right, the little small prototype, to an actual functioning prototype. I'm thinking about starting, like, if somebody were to start a small business and they're like, oh, I have this idea and I play around with it, and then it just seems like, I mean, you covered the financial piece of it, but also just like the logistics of putting I've seen the steamer before. It's not a small piece of equipment. Like they're massive.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, with that much steam, there's a ton of pressure going on there, a lot of engineering, and so like just the leap. Tell me, danger. Yeah.
Yeah, putting a boiler on a field.
And he, not an engineer by trade, or like,
No.
And so, just if you wouldn't mind, like, how long did it take from that oven to the time of actually creating that first functioning prototype, and did anything blow up along the way? And
Yeah, that's a great question, Cordell. I obviously left out a huge portion of the history because I just talked about how the idea was conceived. Spencer knows this, but it takes ag companies years and years and years to come out with a new product. And my dad had a working steamer 2 years after he had the idea. Wow. He had a working steamer.
From idea to
literally
working
will
steamer.
it'll take these big ag companies 5 to 7 years to fully test, develop, and release a new product. Obviously, it wasn't easy, though. It wasn't easy. After he learned that steam could be the answer, he had to figure out how to make the steam. And back then there wasn't internet, right? And so he literally had to go to the library and study ways to make steam. And that's when he determined that using a boiler, which you said it could be dangerous, right? Boilers, it's something that had never been done before, a mobile boiler, right? when you talk about boilers, you think of schools and factories that have boilers, right? Just stationary to heat the buildings, right? That was a challenge in and of itself to find a supplier that was comfortable putting up one of their boilers on wheels, right? And there's a miraculous part to that story too, because my dad had called every boiler supplier in the country pretty much, and no one was willing to make a custom boiler that would fit on a trailer. And got on his knees again and prayed, and while he was praying, a phone call came to him, and a guy said, "I think I know someone that can make you a boiler that would be willing to." And my dad found his first company. It was a Kiwani boiler, and they said, we would be willing to do this for you. And that was miraculous that happened.
And that's just one piece
Yeah.
of the whole
That's one
prototype that
piece.
Cordell was
So
talking
my
about.
dad
Yeah.
had to learn boiler laws. There's lots of boiler laws, lots of boiler codes. And then the other challenge was, where do we put the steam in the hay? And he initially had tried to put the steam right up underneath, right to the side of the steamer, out in front of the baler. And he learned that didn't do anything. So his first attempt failed. And that's when Brent Hunter comes in and says, why don't we just wire this hose right to the front of the baler and steam it right at the baler? And it worked. And so my dad learned we have to put the steam right at the baler, because the steam contacts the hay and absorbs into the hay so fast, and then it comes out of the hay really fast too. And so that was a challenge to figure that out. So now we inject the hay right at the baler. It softens that hay right there, and then when the bell's made, that steam just dissipates out quick. And so lots of work to develop the steamer, but just if you know something's a good idea and you have a passion for it, and obviously he felt like he had been inspired to do this, it drove him to continue to develop that.
Yeah, well, I love that you mentioned too, like the first idea of how to build it failed. And I think oftentimes when you're starting a business, the first idea you have is probably going to fail. And you have to pivot and adjust and find new ways.
Yep.
You know, Lee creating his product, you create one thing and then you're like, that doesn't work quite right,
Yes.
and you go back and re-prototype and figure out a way to make it work. So.
Yep.
version
Yep.
17.
Lots of different. You have to lots of mistakes. You know, Thomas Edison found out 10,000 ways how not to make a light bulb, right? He made a lot of mistakes before. You make a lot of mistakes when you're trying to develop something like this. Yeah, question?
So in a family business.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give you the microphone so we can get it on the camera. No, you're good.
So in a family business, you're going to have ripples in business. How do you keep everybody happy, content, not have one person controlling everything, and even external naysayers? This is not going to work. Your baby's ugly. Did you go through any of that?
So what's really funny is talking about the naysayers is when my dad developed this, there were 3 companies that were interested in this. Because originally my dad wasn't interested in doing manufacturing. He wanted to sell the idea. And one of the engineers from one of the big companies came out and said, I've done all the math. This isn't going to work. This can't work. I've done all the math. And my dad said, well, it does work. We have a machine that's working. And that was the end of it. That same engineer got hired by John Deere to work on the steamer project that John Deere wanted to do. So John Deere wanted to do this, and that same engineer that was a naysayer got hired by John Deere to do this project. And he became a huge proponent of the steamer. He became my dad's biggest cheerleader. And it didn't work out with John Deere. It didn't at the end. But my dad says he needed to go through that experience with John Deere. It was a critical step to starting Staheli West. And it was, although it didn't work out in the end, we are much better off that we started Staheli West than if we would have just licensed out the rights to some other company. some huge company where it's maybe not such a big deal to them to sell, a couple hundred steamers when they're selling 10,000 tractors a year. But it is a big deal to us. And so it worked out for the best. And that experience of 8 years working with a big, professional, awesome company like that really did help us to get where we are today. And so there are naysayers, and we still deal with that. There's still hey guys that are skeptical still when they see the price of a steamer and, that's too expensive, right? We know it'll pay for itself. We can prove it. Our customers will say the same thing. As far as the family business goes, there's pros and cons to working in a family business. The pros, I would say, it's great. It's a family business, but it's everybody's family at Staheli West. Yes, there are certain owners of Staheli West, but everyone feels pretty tight-knit. We know each other well. We enjoy spending time together at work. We know people's families, and so working for a family business is nice because we have that family culture feel. I have 2 other brothers that work at Staheli West. My dad's still there. I have a sister that works at Staheli West, and so there are sometimes challenging situations, working with family members and things like that. But we all kind of oversee different areas of the business. We know that at the end of the day, my older brother Dallin, he's probably going to be, he is the general manager. But we all oversee major areas of the business. And we're pretty good at just counseling together and coming up with ideas. And we can disagree, and we get passionate. We get heated. We disagree sometimes. And some families can't take that. It all depends on the personality. Some families, they can't forget about things and they hold grudges. But my family, it works with my family because what happens at work, so far it hasn't affected into our personal lives with each other at all. We can yell in a meeting and disagree, and on Sunday we can eat family dinner together and be just fine.
Yeah, and it's important to have healthy conflict in a business and in a workplace as well, and being able to challenge ideas to find better solutions and things like that. So,
And our employees, they aren't afraid to disagree with my dad or Dallin or any of us either. We have very lively meetings at Staheli West. They could be filmed, but Spencer's laughing. Nobody's afraid to throw ideas out or disagree or even tell my dad that I don't like that idea. And I think that's good for the most part. I think it's a positive thing at Staheli West.
Yeah.
So, well, along those lines, in terms of the people that you have working for you, I was just struck by the amount of different jobs. I mean, I don't think very many people these days would think, okay, I want to be a farmer, but you've touched on a dozen different jobs that you have within your company, that ranging from computer programmers to marketing to engineers, and all these different things that you don't normally think of as but it's all part of this. And technology is, just help you advance your product. And so just kind of touch on that a little bit, because someone interested in that field can pretty much find any number of things to do at your company.
Yes. In ag or in manufacturing especially, there's all different kinds of jobs. Like you touched on a few: marketing, accounting, engineering, sales, all different mechanics, all different kinds of jobs in ag. Ag companies, they have some of the most talented people working in their companies, especially with the technology and the demand for technology, especially with the labor issues that we see nowadays. Skilled labor is hard to get. There is a huge drive in the ag world to get very talented people to develop technology that makes running farm equipment easier or autonomous without even having a driver or GPS steering, whatever it is. There's a lot of talented people in the ag equipment manufacturing world. It's amazing to see what companies are working on.
Yeah, and how high tech a lot of
Very
people think
high tech.
farming is just like the bootstrap, just go out and get the work done with your
Yeah.
back, but now it's turned into a very high tech industry.
So much data driven stuff and computers and technology is just huge.
Yeah. Okay, I think we got time for one more question. We got about 2
Don't
minutes.
let me hog, but I did want to ask a question, and this will be good because it'll let you kind of touch on some of the stuff that we were working on right before I left. Staheli West is a very innovative company, and it is innovating. It's actually kind of cutting edge on some of ag's hay baling technology. So will you kind of touch on that, Logan, with some of the innovations that Staheli West is actually collaborating with, and without having to say who it is? I know we've got NDAs and stuff with that, but you can kind of touch on that, maybe would be cool for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Throughout the years, we've grown big enough. We've made a big enough impact in the hay world that we are getting the attention now of some of the large ag manufacturers with their hay balers. We've been able to develop relationships with some of the biggest hay baling manufacturing companies in the world because our name is getting out there more, and they're recognizing our technology, and more people are adopting it. And so we've been able to work with other companies now so that our steamer matches up better to their hay balers. So our system is a tractor, steamer, and baler. They all work together. All three of those pieces of equipment have to work together. So our steamer is hooked up to a baler, right? Because we're steaming the hay while it's being baled. And so we've been able to work with other companies, and we're developing a cool system right now on small balers, actually. That's going to help us take our steamer to the next level as far as automation and getting the perfect bell every time. Getting the perfect weight, getting the perfect moisture, because we add the moisture, and their baler controls the weight, getting the perfect amount of flakes. And so the industry is transforming now so that every bell is going to be exactly the same, whereas 20, 30 years ago, before the steamer, it's all up to the weather. It's all up to how much natural dew you get. So, collaborating with other industry leaders that's what we're doing right now, and it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. Just again, it seems like Cedar City, just a small little spot of the world, but then going worldwide with all the technology and innovations and sales and everything spreading around the world. So. Okay, well, we're about out of time, so I was going to say too, I don't personally know your dad, but it sounds like he's one of the hardest working and smartest people around.
He's very hardworking.
Sounds like a genius,
very
and knows how to get it done. So
he's very smart, but we do have like I mentioned, we wouldn't be where we're at today if we hadn't have gotten the people we have now too. So we have a team that has taken what my dad has done, and we've probably taken it beyond what he ever imagined was possible. We have a great product development team, very, very smart people.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, let's give Logan a round of applause and